No one knew where the book came from, not really. It wasn't something that could be found in libraries or second-hand stores. It had no publisher, no author's name, no ISBN, not even a printing date. Just a deep black cover that seemed to absorb light as if the room itself bent to its presence. The title, engraved in letters that shifted whenever Ayan blinked, read, "This book only appears when the universe knows you're ready." Most people dismissed it as a myth, a story told late at night in dark corners of online forums. Some called it a digital ghost story, others a psychological trick people played on themselves when life became unbearable. But when it appeared in Ayan's room, those dismissals melted into something else entirely. Disbelief, wonder, and a growing, gnawing fear that reality might be far stranger than he had ever allowed himself to believe. Ayan had always been practical, not the type to chase signs, destiny, or cosmic coincidences. To him, life was an equation: work hard, survive, repeat. And lately, the math was failing. His father had died 40 days ago, a sudden, sharp absence that made every corner of his house feel hollow. His career had collapsed in a matter of months. Projects he had spent years building crumbled like sandcastles, and night after night he lay awake staring at the ceiling, feeling like a glitch in the universe, like he was existing but not living. It was 3:03 a.m. when the silence became heavy enough to press against his eardrums. He had been scrolling through his phone aimlessly, letting the cold light of the screen illuminate the shadows of his room. He wasn't reading anything, he just needed the noise, and then the air changed. Ayan noticed it first as a weight in the room, a dense stillness that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. The lamp on his desk flickered once, twice, then steadied, and there it was, the book. It lay in perfect center on his desk, untouched by time or dust, as though it had always belonged there, waiting for him. No sound, no movement, no one could have placed it there. The windows were closed, the door was locked. Ayan knew this instantly. The rational part of him screamed that someone had to be playing a trick, but another part, the part that had been starving for something beyond explanations, felt the truth of it like a pulse under his skin. He approached it cautiously, half expecting the book to vanish if he touched it. He reached out, warm, gentle, vibrating like a sleeping heart. Ayan opened the first page, and the words leapt out at him. "You've survived chapters you never thought you'd turn. It's time to read the reason." A chill crawled up his spine. The next page was blank, or at least it had been, until the letters began to form themselves, slowly, as if the ink was alive. They danced across the page, curling and straightening into sentences that seemed to know him intimately. "You carry grief like weight because you think letting go dishonors love. It doesn't, it frees love." His chest tightened. No one had known that, not even his closest friend, not even his mother who had been wrapped up in her own sorrow. "You believe your story ended when his did. You're wrong. That was the prologue." Tears welled in Ayan's eyes. He remembered his father vividly. The laugh lines etched deep around his eyes, the calloused hands that had held him as a child, the comforting silence they shared when words weren't needed. He had felt abandoned, cheated by the unfairness of death. And yet, the book told him something he had never been ready to hear. A tear fell onto the page, and the book reacted. The liquid ink rippled like black galaxy dust stirred by emotion, shifting and swirling until the letters dissolved and new words formed, slow and deliberate. "Are you ready to know why you were chosen to stay?" Ayan whispered, barely audible, "Yes." The room seemed to exhale. The lights dimmed. The book glowed softly, casting shadows that bent toward him, as if listening. He continued to read, almost hypnotically. "You think survival is a punishment. It is preparation. The universe does not close doors. It waits for you to be ready to open them. The words resonated deep within him. He realized he had been carrying a secret guilt, not just for surviving his father's death, but for feeling unworthy of the life left behind. It was not despair, exactly. It was inertia, a slow paralysis that had frozen him in grief, and then the book began to show him memories, not as photographs, not as words, but as visions. The first vision came as he ran his hand along the spine. His childhood home appeared around him, but through a haze of memory he hadn't visited in years. He saw himself as a boy, clumsy, laughing, hiding from his father behind the curtains. He felt again the warmth of being small in a safe world, and a longing he had buried so deeply it was almost foreign. The second vision was darker. His father, older now, sitting alone at the kitchen table in the dim morning light, staring at a letter that had never been sent. The letter trembled in the air like a whisper, unsaid words floating toward him. Ian could feel the weight of it, as if the grief he carried had been shared all along, unspoken but mutual. "You are not alone," the book whispered, ink moving like smoke. "Even when you think you are, even when you think there is no one." Ian shivered. He wanted to close the book, but his fingers refused. It was as if some magnetic force had gripped his soul, rooting him to this strange, impossible object. The next chapter began differently. It was no longer text. It was questions, questions that mirrored the ones he had been asking himself in the dead of night. Do you know why you survived that night? Do you know why you felt the world crumble beneath your feet? Do you know why everything you built fell away? The answers were not on the page. They were inside him, waiting, clawing to surface. He whispered fragments, "Because I wasn't ready, because I couldn't see, because I—" The book's pages shimmered and the questions transformed. Because you were being prepared, because your heart needed to learn patience, because you were being shown that pain is not punishment. Ian's vision shifted again. This time, he was older, walking through a city he didn't recognize, streets empty but illuminated by a strange golden light. He could hear a melody, familiar, tender, pulling him forward. He turned corners, passed through alleys that smelled like rain and old paper, until he came to a door. It was small, wooden, with a brass handle shaped like a crescent moon. The book pulsed in his hands. The door only opens when you accept that some mysteries are meant to be lived, not solved. The book whispered. Ian's hand shook as he reached for the handle. The door was warm under his touch. A current of energy surged through him, electric, magnetic, alive. The book's ink swirled, forming new text. Do not fear the unknown. It has been waiting for you as patiently as you have waited for it. He opened the door. Nothing, just blackness. And then, a whisper in the darkness, barely audible, carried the scent of his father's cologne and the sound of laughter he had almost forgotten. You are ready. Ian stumbled backward. The room returned, his desk, the lamp, the book glowing faintly in the shadows. He realized he had been holding his breath. Slowly, he exhaled. The weight of grief, though not gone, had shifted, he felt. Lighter, prepared, somehow, to turn the next page, to learn what the universe had been trying to teach him all along. The final words of Part 1 appeared, glowing silver across the black page. Good. Then understand this. Pain wasn't your punishment. It was your preparation, and the story has only just begun. Ian closed the book for a moment, holding it to his chest. The night was still, the air no longer heavy, but alive, as if the world itself had noticed him, had whispered his name, had acknowledged that he had finally arrived at the threshold of what he was meant to discover. And somewhere, in the distance of his mind, he felt the first stirrings of hope, the dangerous, fragile kind that demanded courage, that required surrender, and that promised transformation.